Hey, good morning. It's Patrick Lovell, Truth Bomb riffing the con. I'm not going to timestamp this because I don't know if it matters on this one, but just say it's February-ish, 2024, and we're in the midst of chaos in every direction, and you're not hearing me, not to the level that you need to hear me. Thank you to those that are. We're growing the numbers slightly, but again, the information I have needs to be absorbed by tens of millions of people. And it's not penetrating. It's not penetrating because people cannot hear, they cannot listen, they cannot open up their minds to understand something that's not the same thing that the deluge of this massive tidal wave of misinformation and deception and diabolical scheming and manipulation is perverting everyone's minds so that they cannot see the forest for the trees. And yes, it is elementary because it is the emperor's new clothes. If you don't know what that is, look it up. I saw Bob Marley's One Love yesterday, and man, was I inspired. I went with my son, and I'm from that era. I'm from that era of, people grew up with punk rock and, well, heavy metal, hard rock to start. And then, there were things that happened in the world at that time. There was a lot of chaos as well. And Bob was just this voice, this incredible voice, this incredible fusion of something that came from the heavens that was like, part of the clouds and penetrated your soul because he had this biblical soul himself and he was connected to the Almighty and Jah Rastafari and everything that that constitutes. But ultimately, it was about harmony, fusion, peace, love, getting through the world, positivity, and it resonated with millions of people around the world at a very chaotic time. And maybe that was the voice they needed to hear. It was healing to a lot of wounds, and even though his life was as personified by this film, which by the way was produced by Plan B, which is Brad Pitt's company, and they also did, of course, Moneyball and The Big Short and so many other fantastic films. And Brad Pitt's a genius. His company's a genius, and thank God they finally got this film of Bob Marley off the ground at a time where I feel like maybe if a lot of people connected with Bob, we could somehow, reach across whatever is holding us apart and, see the light that everything is going to be all right. And those are the types of, you know, uh, my mind is filled with a lot of imagery. It's like the heartbeat. It's the notes on the air. It's that magical uh, connection. And you know, Bob, well, I went to go see this with my son, and it was really cool because my son, I had brought my son up with Bob, and he'd always had, and still does, posters of Bob Marley on his wall, and we were basically immersed and enthralled with the storyline, and the storyline was really cool how they captured this part of Bob's life and the zeitgeist of it all and what it represented. But there was a couple of moments. One where Bob had actually just happenstance been in London at a Clash show, and for me that was incredible because the Clash was probably my favorite band of all time, and Bob was right up there as well. But to have those two in the same place at the same time was really cool to think about, and the way they captured that was cool. But there was another concert setting where Bob was singing the song "War" in every direction, war to the east, war to the right, and that's what it feels like today. And there's a lot of things coming unglued, but it's also part and parcel to the, the ungluing of whatever this piecemeal thing that we put together after World War II that's kind of existed for the last 80 years that that has created this monstrosity that I have the answers to that cannot penetrate your brain because of you're not listening. You don't understand what I have. You don't understand what it means. You don't understand that it's what everybody's looking for, but because everybody has the bandwidth of a squirrel, that you can't even take what's offered to you for free. And it's the truth. And everybody's looking for a savior. And the savior is the truth. But what is the truth? It's how the system works and how power reigns supreme. It's how we have all been betrayed by a diabolical machine that you don't understand because you don't know all of the pieces. And it's all there for free because all of the Americans that people buy are lies, as demonstrated by everything that we're seeing, from Tucker Carlson to Russell Brand to Joe Rogan. And I don't think Joe Rogan lies intentionally, but he certainly takes the eyeballs where he can get them, and he always has, starting with Alex Jones, who's a liar. And Alex Jones is a weird kind of liar because I don't know if he understands he's lying. He's just insane. And he's tapped into things that he doesn't understand how to phrase or do the investigative journalism and the work. And then he uses all of these different things because he's got eyeballs, and he gets people going crazy because he's crazy, because the world's crazy, and he sells products and gets rich and then lies some more about things like what? Like, the children that got slaughtered that he said was a false flag information, that he can't pay, the fines that he got stuck with, because that's the same thing that's going to happen to Donald Trump. Where's the justice in that? No, millions of people are listening to him again because Elon Musk has put him front and center and amplified his voice alongside Tucker Carlson and alongside Russell Brand, alongside Vivek Ramaswamy. All of them are liars. Yeah, I'll tell it to their face. I'll tell it to them on their show if they ever wanted to get inside the understanding of the stuff that they tend to want us to understand, or at least they're selling, which is conspiracy. And yeah, it's a conspiracy. And yeah, when they talk about if you're Russell Brand talking about pharmaceutical companies and everything that they've done, yeah, there's a lot of that. But does that mean that what you're telling us about COVID and Wuhan is absolute? I don't know, because I don't have the answers. I haven't gone deep dive as I have our financial system, which runs everything. Why? Because money runs everything. Who is our God? Money. Does it grow on trees? Not for you. What is MAGA? What is MAGA? Is MAGA a right-wing paramilitary, fascistic, overthrow, tyrannical, white supremacist movement? For some it is, not for all. But who are the other people? Who are they championing? What is the vision of Donald Trump? To free himself from his mistakes and turn us into a freaking, a vehicle for foreign powers so that they can get us out of their way for their objective? But what is our objective? I remember when I went on the Occupy Wall Street, I was a part of it because I went and I made a documentary film. It was my first documentary film that we should somehow get out there, called Forward 13, Waking Up the American Dream. And I went coast to coast at the time that the Occupy Wall Street movement kicked off, and I captured it all, and I got inside it, and I understood it, and I understood what happened during it and after, and it led me to a lot of things. And the mechanics of the Occupy Wall Street were such that it started to fully grapple, thanks to this anthropologist, I think, who started it from New York University. I can't remember his name. He's a legend, but he came up with the 99%, right? And yeah, they started asking the questions of what Wall Street got away with and what happened in the aftermath and the bailouts and all of these things, but they didn't have the details. They didn't understand it. And then it was absorbed first by homeless people in encampments all around the country, so that it couldn't actually really focus on what it was trying to do, because it was kind of an empathetic humanitarian, or at least made up or constituted of a lot of people that were that way, that were trying to basically do triage on people that had already fallen through the cracks. And it took up all of its time. And then there was a lot of people that, predictably became kind of the heads of it, that were really Marxists. They despise capitalism. They've been around for a very long time. They want the system to fail. And so it became about that. And it failed. And it failed because the police put their boot up the ass of Occupy Wall Street, because it was a threat. Because some within Occupy Wall Street understood what actually was going on, but not to the degree that I do now. Now, granted, it's 13, 14, 15 years later, depending on when you want to start it. I guess Occupy Wall Street's 13 years pretty much. But the details that I have are what the federal government of the United States and the sum total of media hid and lied about and covered up and made sure that we didn't know, which is why I had to make the con. And if I haven't already said it, I think I've said it. I have to say it every single time I do these truth bombs. It's free at www.thecon.tv. Why is it important for you to see the con? Why? Because then you can't be lied to. You can't be lied to by Tucker Carlson. You can't be lied to by Russell Brand, by everybody. Not even Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart spent years and years and years on this stuff, and he still doesn't understand what happened. And especially Jimmy Dore, and especially Alex Jones, and especially everybody who has got, millions of followers and takes up all the oxygen in the room, and all of this insanity and all of this madness. Of course, the platform of Elon Musk, who amplifies idiots and buffoons and liars to get everybody's information, because I believe, this is another part of the conspiracy. Elon Musk is getting information just like every titan of social media, which is leading to what he started with, which is the nature of transactions and currency. And if he has all of your information and knows what he's going to do, he is actually central bank digital currency. That's kind of the end game. And it's kind of ironic considering, he's like, hey, be careful of the central government, just like all of the guys who are hucking crypto and Bitcoin were like, be careful of the Federal Reserve. Well, they ended up trying to be the Federal Reserve. And crypto, really the only value that it's ever had so far is to move money for criminal syndicates. Does it have a downstream utility with blockchain and being able to follow all of the forensics of every transaction? You bet your ass it does. And had we just used that based on the stuff that I'm talking about, we could have prevented or at least filtered out a lot of problems in advance. But ultimately, the way I see this is a struggle for life and death for all of us, for society, for the so-called democracy, which we don't have, but for the sustainability of the world. And I think we are creeping up on a potential tripwire that seems to make, in my mind, based on everything I've seen for the last 24 years, inevitable for a global armed conflict. And who is it going to be for? Everybody who's already in power, who is fighting for more and more power, for autocracies, for centralized power, for betrayal. There is no liberty. There is no justice when that happens. As we've just seen with Alexei Navalny. Was Navalny perfect? No, of course not. Is WikiLeaks guy whose name I'm conflating with the other guy who was the whistleblower, Edward Snowden, but it's not Edward Snowden. It's a white-haired guy from Sweden who's locked up, forever in London. Is he kind of a version of Navalny to the West? Yeah, because of what he revealed. Yeah. What would Bob Marley do in a situation like this? Bob Marley to me was a prophet. Same with Martin Luther King. Not literally. They're humans with incredible intellect and magic that had some sort of that thing that was needed at that time of history. Am I those guys? I wish. My work is. What are we looking at? We're looking at down the barrel of collapse. I mean, I've said this before, and I'm up to 470 truth bombs, 72 truth bombs over the course of 2 years. We landed and premiered the con in August of 2020, September of 2020. We wanted to do it with the ramp up to the 2020 election. We wanted everybody to start focusing on what the banks got away with and how they're in complete control of the world, the banks, the financial system. And ultimately, we did a soft launch, and then January 6th happened. And everything I saw with January 6th with the big lie was mirroring what we were revealing in the con, i.e., we were all sold a lie. And I'm absolutely certain that Steve Bannon was paying attention, or the powers that be that have control were paying attention. And somehow it seeped in, and then all of this other crazy, confangled mess that led to January 6th that we've all been in the midst of ever since. So I ask you the question again, what is MAGA? What is Donald Trump? Who is Donald Trump serving? Is he serving the American people? Is he trying to do a tidal wave to rise? What is the saying? The tide to raise all ships. Is that Donald Trump? No, Donald Trump is one of these people that have been around really my whole life, right? They just hate the other, and they think they're better than everybody else. And everything that turns out to be about Trump is exactly what I've known about these types of people. A lot of these people are malignant narcissists that lie and deceive and are diabolically twisted. And he was born on third base with a lot of money, and he used money to manipulate a lot of things, and he lied the whole time. And now it's on display for all to see. And there's millions of Americans that are going to support a guy that is a crime boss. That's what America's come to. But who are the people that are supporting it? I mean, again, what is MAGA? In my mind, from what I've seen and what I've experienced in my life, MAGAs are a lot of these people that might look like they go to church, that might look like they wear nice clothes, and they might be white, and they might be in some, I guess, way, I don't know, attractive. I don't know if that's the thing. I don't think of them that way. I just think of them as maybe normal in some way, but yet they're involved with all sorts of industries that lie. And is it a possibility that they're all liars and they're all fraudsters and they're all scumbags playing the same game and they like Trump because they want to be like Trump? Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And the irony is, and they don't even know this, that they're all dependent upon socialism. The federal government is what's propped up the housing market since the 2008 great financial crisis. Just because it goes to a bunch of middlemen that are the ones who finance everything, it's not baked on predicated on the market as supply and demand of profits that drive this whole thing. No, it's the government propping it up. And again, there I go with my touching the third rail, because my colleague says you can't go there because the system and the Borg and the algorithm is going to keep you down. Yeah, it has. It's a matter of life or death. It's already murdered democracy. It's already murdered the American dream. How do I know? Because I made the con. Please watch it, understand the details of how it works, and then watch the new Untouchables. That's a lot of information, and I hope you can get there. I got to tell you, I get these comments on my YouTube page where, like, for example, several people have said, yeah, the 2008 great financial crisis destroyed my life. And then somebody chimed in yesterday, even though I didn't even mention it, but I guess they've wanted to probably say this for some time, and they're probably paying attention on occasion. And they said, yeah, I've got my 2008 story. Let me tell you, I've listened to thousands of 2008 stories. And what I constantly run into is that because of the carnage, because of the fractured sort of collateral damage that was left in the wake of this whole thing, people only look at their own story. They're like, this is what happened to me, and I want to tell my story. My story is what's going to save the day. My story is what's going to be able to provide the eureka so that everybody finally gets it, and I'm going to be made whole. And everybody, please listen to me, 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 me. Maybe that's a victim psychology. Look, I know and understand what that feels like, because that's how I was until I went out and I was able to manifest telling the story of the con and revealing it, where I got thousands of stories from around the country and tens of thousands of pieces of evidence and hundreds of hours of testimony to put together the entire thing, that the people that I need to reach, the tens of millions of people that went through the 2008 great financial crisis, that ruined their lives, that are fractured, that might go the way of MAGA, that might go a different direction, who knows, in a myriad of directions. That's what happens when you have a failed state and things failed. And by the way, that's what makes us all vulnerable, so that the power can double down, which it did. And the 2024 election is only about those that are wrestling for power for themselves to manifest the same things that have been going on for the last, I don't know, I pinpoint it back to the 80s as kind of the tripwire for this whole thing. Elements of it existed a lot longer than that, but it didn't grow and groundswell and to become the system until really starting with the SNL crisis, and then going through the Enron era frauds, and then crescendoing with the 2008 great financial crisis. And everything since then has just been driven by what we didn't fix. And so if you're one of those people who are victims of the 2008 great financial crisis and you're reaching out to me and you want to drop a quip that says, yeah, I've got my story, understand what happened to you, and then join us and then learn more because there's so much more. I did the con, which is 5 hours based on thousands of hours of information that I have. And then I've got season two that I had to turn into the new Untouchables because I got quashed by the system. And oh, yeah, I want to just mention this really quick about conspiracies. You know, when you're dealing with Russell Brand and Tucker Carlson and all of the other guys that are out there, and I hate to put him in this category too, but yeah, Matt Taibbi. Matt Taibbi has betrayed us because he's playing the game the way the game is played. And it's definitely algorithms. They're talking about conspiracies, and there's a whole lot of conspiracies, but it's not the conspiracy that controls all the others. When they bring up BlackRock, for example, they don't know what BlackRock is, and they don't know what BlackRock does, and they don't know exactly how BlackRock became what it is, which is what I'm revealing to you. But they'll chime in about BlackRock. They'll chime in about the pharmaceuticals. They'll chime in about COVID. They'll chime in about all of these other elements. And then, of course, all of the stuff that we have seen that's engaged with, Putin and mainstream and NATO and all of the rest of it. And yeah, mainstream lies in ways that are just incomprehensible, that are so easy to identify and prove. And yeah, mainstream is the reason why we have this independent kickback that is out of its mind. But they're none of them are investigative journalists. None of them have the resources or the wherewithal, the tenacity, the commitment to do what needs to be done, which is find out the truth, which is what we've traditionally depended upon in our courts and also in the media, both of which have been hijacked and have betrayed us. My hope would be to galvanize millions of people like Martin Luther King did, but I'm not Martin Luther King. To inspire and to move millions of people like Bob Marley did, but I'm not Bob Marley. I'm Patrick Lovell. I'm not the savior. I am the messenger. The savior is the truth. And it's a matter of life and death. And the only way that we, the people, can turn the tables and get the control of our country back the way it was designed of, for, and by the people, then we have to be unified, empowered, inspired, driven, and committed to propping up that which I have laid out for you, and I am leading you. Because we've got to create the clean new deal. I experimented yesterday with trying to take a different tack because my colleague Kevin convinced me to do that. And I think most of the time he's right. But you've got to understand something. I'm not a socialist. I believe in a hybrid system that has socialism for those that have fallen through the safety nets. And I do believe that people can, create organizations any way they want to. If you want to create a co-op and you're in agriculture, that's socialism. Good for you. But I understand that there has to be a hybrid of all of the things that we've experimented with throughout the ages. And you cannot have absolute autocracy in any situation because you have to have the liberty of people that can come up in the system, that can find answers and create solutions to problems that every generation creates. And the best way that can happen is to have the freedom through the capacity that a market economy enables. I don't want to call it capitalism because it's not capitalism anymore. Capitalism requires risk reward. You have aligned interests. And if you make mistakes, you fail, you die. That's the idea. And if you have a law that holds power to account and you fail, you go to jail and you get all of your stolen money taken back from you, which is part and parcel to what the Clean New Deal will do if tens of millions of you join arms with me, because it is really, truly the only way we can do this peacefully, by using the power of the federal government the way it was designed to do what it's supposed to do. But what we're looking at is the entirety of the system failed. That's why there's so much chaos. That's why there is institutionalized corruption. That's why our institutions you can't trust, which has led to this insanity. But it's not because they can't work. It's just because corruption rules. And we have to create a tidal wave populist crusade equipped with the truth to crush corruption and drown the fascism that it fuels. If you believe in liberty and justice for all, if you believe in equality, if you believe in the American dream, if you believe in dynamism, and if you believe in the integrity of law, not just believe, but demand it, force it. We see miracles every single day. You can go get on a plane and go visit your grandmother in New York, whatever the case is. There is nothing we can't accomplish. And no, the question is, how are you going to pay for it? That's not the question. We've been paying for corruption out the nose to the tune of $70 trillion since 2013 to a tiny fraction of people who have all the control, that have created this chaos, that has created what looks to me like people willing to start a civil war. I've seen all over X people threatening the likes of Letitia James, who is no savior of markets, I can assure you. And it's not because she got it wrong on Donald Trump. She got it right on Donald Trump, but she only got that much of Donald Trump, which is that much of the system I'm talking about. Lawrence Tribe, a genius from Harvard Law School, professor emeritus, tells us every day on Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC every night what Trump is getting away with, and the audacity of the Supreme Court with the 14th Amendment, Section 3. And if you just read it, you understand what insurrection is. And everything else is nonsense. But nobody is going to tell you the information that I am and continue to and have done tirelessly at the expense of everything that I am, because it is life or death. What is it going to take to get you to understand that we have the answers that can destroy the corruption that is destroying us? And that the answers on the other side of this will lead to a renaissance where we truly create a rising tide raises all ships. And I laid out yesterday elements that could be claimed by some to be socialism, and in some ways they might be, but that's not compared to the socialism that exists for the rich. I call it corporate fascism, undergirded by a criminal syndicate that uses socialism to guarantee the mafiocracy that is now fueling fascism. That's it. That's what it is. That's what we are. And you're not informed because media failed, because they're all lying to you. There is one tumor of corruption that controls and enables all of the other corruption, and that's what I continue to reveal to you. And if you listen to me, if you join me, if you understand me, we will reboot. We will reset. We will redeem ourselves. I'm leading Exodus against corruption to create the resurrection of the American dream, and there is no time to lose. I am not your savior. The truth is our savior. Failure is not an option. Rise, roar, revolt. This is the clean New Deal. It's not rocket science, it's racketeering. When you have the truth, you are bulletproof. This is the righteous grind. Onwards and upwards.